disappointment comes to an end. The Sacramento Kings are going to the playoffs.
One of the coolest teams in the entire league with their explosive offense, having the clutchest player in the regular season and so far in the postseason as well. One of the loudest fan bases we've ever heard.
For the lead!
One of the overall best viewing experiences you can have watching any team this year. Yes, I'm talking about the Sacramento Kings. In my first video ever, I predicted these dudes would be nice this year, but not this nice. Finishing the season with the third best seed in an absolutely buck-wild Western Conference this year, you wouldn't assume at first glance that this team had just came off a 17-year playoff drought, defying all the odds, being absurdly successful after not having just a low point, but quite literally the lowest point in NBA history. I wanted to take a look back and see, have we ever seen an NBA team bounce back this well after such a drought? But quickly, before we jump into the video, make sure to stomp on that like button, flop on the sub button, and activate those post notifications. The road to 500 is looking promising, Dashin' Hoopers. I love you guys. Thank you tons. Taking a look back on the NBA's history, I wanted to examine other teams that had more than a decade-long drought of not making it to the playoffs. And we landed with 3 teams throughout the entire league's existence. Starting off with the 12-year streak from the 1995 to 2007 Golden State Warriors. The shortly dominant core of Tim Hardaway Sr., Chris Mullin, and Mitch Richmond, known as Run TMC, split apart once Richmond was traded to the Kings in late 1991, but was bandaged together with the drafting of Latrell Sprewell in 1992, giving themselves false hope for this once explosive Golden State team. With the fellas deteriorating basically since the trade of Mitch, they lost in the first round of the playoffs one more time in '94 before everyone from the old and new core left by 1999. Through years of poor drafting, having glimpses of good players come in and out of the organization, such as Antoine Jameson and Jason Richardson, it took a slightly underrated 06-07 cast to finally clinch a playoff spot in the 8th seed, having 7 players averaging double digits in points, and having 3 more players less than a point away from also averaging double digits. And although this 8th-seeded Warriors team did upset the first-seeded MVP Dirk and his Dallas Mavericks in the first round, they ended up getting gentlemen swept by the Jazz in the very next series, initiating another playoff drought that lasted 5 years until Steph Curry came to save the day. No, decade in 2013. Next up, we have the 2005 through 2018 Minnesota Timberwolves with their 13-year-long playoff drought. Man, Kevin Garnett really tried for this team. I mean, really tried. Leading the squad into the playoffs his sophomore year of '97, KG worked his ass off trying to push them further and further into the mix, earning appearances in the playoffs every year up to leading them to the Western Conference Finals his MVP year in 2004. Unfortunately though, this is when his 2 best teammates started to deteriorate, as Latrell Sprewell, hey, what are you doing popping back up? And Sam Cassell were entering their mid to late 30s. And with missing the playoffs 3 more years in a row during the KG era, it was enough for him, as he was traded away to the Boston Celtics in '08, further plummeting the team's chances at any type of success. And while we did have the honor of watching Al Jefferson go to work not using his left hand, and actually some pretty dominant scoring and rebounding years from a young Kevin Love, none of this produced enough wins to make it to the postseason. It took the ruthless aggression from Jimmy Butler to finally lead a young team with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins to squeeze them into the 8th seed in the Western Conference, where they were gentlemen swept by the Houston Rockets. Then Jimmy busted the starters' asses in practice, got traded, and then got to watch his former team miss the playoffs once again from the warm beaches of Miami, Florida. And lastly, the team with the 2nd longest playoff drought in their history behind the Sacramento Kings, we have the cursed Los Angeles Clippers with a whopping 15-year drought from 1977 to 1992. I mean, good God. You're telling me the first Star Wars came out, Magic and Bird had saved basketball, and Jordan had won a chip by the time you made it to the 7th seed? This is far past my time, so it makes me wonder, why in the hell they traded Bob McAdoo in the middle of a 24-13 season just so they can be losers for the next decade and a half? I mean, to be fair, This video did bless me, as doing research, I learned about the wetness World B. Free had. But other than that, not a ton to take away in this era up until 1988, when the uber hyped up Danny Manning out of Kansas was drafted onto the squad, leading the Clippers to a 7th seed playoff appearance his 4th year into the league in 1992. The Clippers showed promise after they were barely beaten by Malone and Stockton in the first round, re-upping the squad with the addition of Mark Jackson in place of Doc Rivers and keeping Ron Harper and Manning. They once again made it into the playoffs at 7th. Again. They barely lost in the first round. Again. They then traded away Manning that next season to the Hawks, where they began their run of mediocrity. Again. So this brings me back to my original question. Have we ever seen what the Kings are doing? The answer is no. Coming back from a longer drought than these 3 other teams by becoming a 3rd seed is unfathomable. And unlike these other rosters that finally, snuck their way into the playoffs, I don't see this core of De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and Keegan Murray splitting up or falling off anytime soon. With these guys having a combined average age of 24 years old, I think it's safe to say we have no clue what the ceiling of this hungry young team is. But what do you think, Dashin' Hoopers? Could we see the future of the West being the Sacramento Kings? Do these guys have a shot at going big this year? Do you think the front office is capable of holding it all together to make sure we don't miss out on this beautiful flowing offense? You let me know down in the comments below, ladies and gentlemen, and as always, y'all have a phenomenal rest of your day.